Hello and welcome back to 100% Real with Ruby. Today I have the mama of the muscle nerds, 𝘳𝘦𝘢𝘀, and she is like a walking brain with long hair because Luke is kind of the walking brain
with short hair.
Short hair and big biceps that he doesn't even train, but somehow just stay stuck in his body. But
don't even get me started. Don't even. He can't train his arms; they get too big.
Yeah, like it's. I guess that also touches into the topic. Well, not the topic. The fact that a lot of people are different. Everybody is different. There is no one that is the exact same, and everybody responds to things differently. Everybody needs a different protocol. Yeah, there are people trying to do the same shit to look the same as the person doing that same shit, or because Karen said to do something else. But we were talking kind of in business terms, but in how it relates to everything else, that you can accomplish so much and have so many small wins, but focus on how far away you are from where you want to be. And as soon as that becomes the sole focus, which will lead us into the first huge topic everybody needs to know. When that becomes the sole focus, how far you need to go, what do? You take the extremes. Let's cut more calories. Let's do more exercise. Let's do this. Let's do that. But where does that go after that? It's not always about eat less, move more. It's not always about calorie deficit, calorie deficit, calorie deficit. It is until it isn't. So I'll let Zoe take it away with that.
I think what's really interesting what you said about that though is like we always focus on like we can have all these small wins, but we then focus on everything that's not being achieved. It's easy to do because I think if you were to look at it as like a ratio or even like a pie graph or anything like that, what you can do and what you do is such a drop in the ocean compared to all of the possibilities that you can't do. So if you know what I mean, like you're always looking at the things like, oh, I want to do that and I want to do that and I want to do that and I want to do that. There's like an infinite amount of numbers of things that you could possibly do, but all you can do yourself is like a very small amount of that. So it's really easy to get lost in the weeds with that and the weeds with that. And then in regards to like everybody being different and needing different things, do you know what, like I have an argument with myself about this because I'm in two minds about it, and I see it on social media all the time, and you look at like some of the training programs people put up and are doing and some of the exercises that they're doing and some of the way they move, and you're like, oh my god, that's so fucking stupid, like that doesn't make any sense. And then I can argue with myself though, but it's better than nothing, like at least they're doing something. And so when I think of like those two sides of the coin, I always say to myself, I think initially in your journey, doing something for sure is better than nothing. Like the importance of a really structured, rigid, perfect, well put together program is almost less important. But as they start wanting more specific goals, specific things, as they start coming out of that almost beginner stage, I think that's where the importance of actually your program making sense becomes more needed. So I do have arguments with myself about that sometimes because I'm like, what is it? Is it better than nothing, or should like if you're not going to do it properly, don't do anything at all? I don't agree with that. So I'm just thinking, I'm looking at them and I'm like, man, that's so stupid. Like what they're doing, that makes no sense. And then I think, well, if they're going to do something, what may as well be something smart. But then I'm like, oh, they just don't know. But anyway, and then it's my little rant on that. And then in regards to like where do you go from here, like if you just add exercise, cut calories, I think that's where the importance of like a really long-term plan comes into. It's like, I know right now what you want to do is like do more exercise, eat less because you really want the results, but you have to think about, okay, once you get those results, where to from there? Or or if the results are slower than you think they are or they should be, or if they're not working, like what's your strategy? And that's where like knowledge and education and having like a really good guided coach, a good coach or mentor comes into play. Because yeah, you're right. Like it's not just about cutting more calories, and adding more and adding more and adding more, because as with everything, there's a point of diminishing returns. And some things have a really large time of when they do have benefit, and it takes a while to get to the point where it starts becoming detrimental. And then some things I have a very narrow range of when they're beneficial, and then they come to the point of diminishing returns quite quickly. And because like with calories, like if you just cut calories, what happens when you're eating fuck all? You can't just keep removing, like you can't eat negative food. And then what happens when you start wanting to, add more and add more? What happens when you're at your capacity of your time availability? You can't add more from there. So that's when starting to be a bit smarter and having a bit more knowledge and probably doing less and eating more might serve you a little bit better. But yeah, and it also don't look at it through the one goal. Like if you look at everything through fat, like I just want fat loss, all I'm going to do is things that are conducive to fat loss. Okay, but what happens about your energy levels? What happens about like your mental clarity? What happens about your sleep? Like the tools that you use to get fat loss have an impact on you other than fat loss, and they need to be taken into consideration as well.
It kind of ties in perfectly with the last podcast. The last podcast, we touched on the fact that you lose yourself in the process. Like Zoe said about the fact that, yeah, it is better than nothing. You started off with a good intention, but then you become so solely focused on a goal that you lose the whole reason you're trying to achieve that goal. That's why focusing on the way to get there is the most important thing you can do. And you need to, my quote, zoom the fuck out. Like you need to zoom the fuck out. It's not all about fat loss or the scale. There is so much more to that, because you can't just keep losing weight forever. And Zoe knows this very well.
Lose the weight to nothing.
Yeah, Zoe knows this very well with me. Like I was fine. Like I had good intentions. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to do all these.
And you were strong. You were so strong. Oh my goodness. Like
back to the initial thing. I was comparing myself to how strong I wasn't when I was already freaking strong. I was comparing myself to how shit I was compared to how much.
And that's insane. Like what was your biggest deadlift?
187, but I could never.
And at what weight? 50 kilos?
56.
56? Like what the fuck? Do you know what? If you look at that the way you've got like your I'm going to butcher this because I can't quite remember, but you've got your absolute strength and then relative strength. So absolute strength is like what is the most someone can lift in the world, and I think who's got is it Thor that's got the record at the moment? He lifted 500 kilos. So absolute strength, that's the winner. Relative strength, that's not even 3 times his body weight. That's not even, and you have just, so relatively speaking, you are stronger than Thor.
Can I just touch on this very closely? Like every single one of you listening to this, saying that you're not strong enough or asking someone what is heavy weight or I can't lift heavy, that is the exact same thing. It is not about lifting a particular weight, because heavy is not just relative to your body weight. It's relative to you and your past. Like it is heavy compared to doing 20 kilos like you did like a month ago. Like think in terms of relative to you, because this is a journey for you. And that's why you need to zoom the fuck out. And like you mentioned before, it's like we lose the sight of the picture because we're so focused on the puzzle piece that everything else goes to the wayside. And then what happens if your health goes down the shit gutter? Like, how is that going to impact your ability to even burn fat?
Yeah. And you also have to be really mindful, just really quickly back on like the strength thing. You have to be really mindful of the perception that you have on what is real. And what I mean by that is, and a perfect example is, so the people that I follow on social media are obviously people that are doing better than me, stronger than me, fitter than me, all that, like more successful than me. And that is like social upwards comparison, right? Because I'm looking at them for motivation. I'm in awe of what they do. I get inspired by what they do. because of that, because I felt like, I think like I don't follow too many fitness people. But the ones that I do are really strong. Like they can all deadlift 150 plus kilos, and they're small females and all that sort of stuff, and or 120, like just big numbers, right? What I think is big numbers, again, to relative strength. The thing is, I remember saying to Luke, he made a comment about how 110 or 120 is like a big deadlift for a girl. And I'm like, no, it isn't. And he goes, Zoe, it is. And I was like, but the people that I follow are all like 140, 150. And he goes, Zoe, that's the anomaly. But because I had saturated my perception of the girls that can do that, and I had removed the subset of people that like aren't doing that, I felt like it was more common, more normal, more achievable than it likely is. And I think that's something that's really important, is if all you're doing is saturating your perception of the industry and what other people can doing with like the top of the top, and that's what you're comparing yourself with. There's a really, really, really good post from John Romanello that I send to everybody when I have conversations with them about like imposter syndrome or anything like that, because everyone says, don't compare yourself to other people because it just makes you feel shit. He says, yes, absolutely. If you do social upward comparison, if you do social downward comparison, it makes you feel better about it. So he says, what I do is when I'm feeling doubtful, I go and look at the stupidest person that I know that is being successful. And I'm like, well, if that fucking stupid ass person can do it, like, so can I. And it's so true though, right? Like, it's so true, because you've got people that aren't as smart as you, aren't as strong as you, aren't as like motivated as you, and they're doing the things that you're telling yourself you can't do. And it's just like, well, fuck it, if they can do it, so can I. And so the answer to not comparing yourself to others is sometimes comparing yourself to others, but placing yourself like higher in the rung than you normally do.
I love that. I have
a little work on that.
I love that. I don't know. No, you don't follow me, so you wouldn't see it. I put up a quote the other time where it said, it's almost like living your life. You finally decided to invest in yourself and get Spotify Premium. Then all of a sudden you're hanging around Spotify Normal and you're getting all the freaking ads in your life. It's almost like that.
It is good. Yeah.
And I remember before my hamstring injury, anything below 100 kilos for a deadlift, which I'm probably going to get to that point again now, but everything below 100 kilos for a deadlift, I used to think was weak. Like, if I couldn't lift 100 kilos a day, I'd be like, that's weak, because I warmed up with that. Do you look at other girls who are deadlifting 80 or 90 or 95 and you're like, man, they're weak? Like, you don't. That's so
exactly. It's just like, so why are we putting that pressure on ourselves to achieve that when you wouldn't do the same to other people? Like, you if someone's in the gym and they're only deadlifting 50 or 60 kilos, you're not going to be like, it's fucking weak. You don't. But why do you do it to yourself?
And you're the one that's actually judging them.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why you're worried about people judging you, because you're the judgmental person.
Yeah. 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 Because they think how you do.
Yeah. And Thomas Flynn actually said something in response to one of my stories where it's just like, you are usually the most judgmental person in the gym room if you're worried about other people judging you, because you're too busy worrying about, oh, this person can't do this person can't do that, when you're the one who's worried about them judging you. Like, if you actually, I love the whole topic of this conversation. If you zoom the fuck out and focus on the process that you, like, what you want to gain out of this thing, you're not going to be worried about what other people are doing. You're not even going to be worrying about comparing yourself to other people. And I used to send, I don't know whether I sent them to you, but I used to send Luke photos of all these chicks' physiques that I wanted on a time. And I'm like, I want that body. And I remember Luke saying to me once, dude, she's fucking 5'11". What are you? And there was also a time where he said, she's probably about 12 kilos heavier than you. You're going to need some weight. So it's just like, stop comparing yourself to other people. And I guess this also comes with comparing yourself to diets. Like the other one that I mentioned in one of my posts is, you could be doing the exact same training program as me, eating the exact same as me, but you ain't going to look like me. Like, I had someone, because I put up that 6-week comparison. I sent it, you saw it as well, because I put it in our program group. I put up a photo comparison of me 6 weeks apart. I look like I got leaner and I look like I built muscle at the same time. I'm the same weight in both those photos, but my ass is like 3 times as big. My muscles look so much fuller. I went from 2,400 calories to 2,800 calories. I actually started training properly because my hamstring started like fixing itself. If you ate 2,900 calories and you trained like I do, and you're a beginner,
you wouldn't look like you. Yeah.
That would probably go to fat, not to muscle. And you probably wouldn't be training as intense as me. Like, you need to stop comparing yourself to other people. And
100%. It's hard though, like, because obviously, like, I like to look at other people and get motivated by it. Like, I'm like, wow, it's achievable. Like, I kind of understand why people do share their journeys and their achievements and stuff like that, because it can be motivating. But where's the line? Where does it stop being motivating and encouraging, and instead start being like, you use them instead of like, oh cool, in a positive light, and start tearing yourself down because you're not like that? Like, where is that line drawn?
That's actually me now. This is me now. I have not compared myself to anyone since I sent that last photo of 𝘆𝚪𝗂𝗏 to Luke, which was ages ago.
And he was like, no.
What I do now, when like I still look at other people, and I look at 𝘵𝗵𝗄𝗏, for example, or I'd look at Krista, for example, and I'd be like, I want their mindset right now. Like, I will look to what it is that is making them the way they are.
So much better. And that's the thing, we get Hetty's physique a lot from girls that are like, I want to look like this, and you're like, I'm not entirely sure you understand exactly what it takes. Like, she lives the life. Like, she's probably tracked every single thing that she has eaten that she's consumed for like 5 to 10 years. She's probably never missed a training session. Like, and she trains with intensity, and she trains with purpose, and she trains to a very, very well designed, structured program. She's got great coaches. She's got good education. Like,
great education. It is
her life. And it's like, and the thing is, even if I love that you're like, I want her mindset and I want her discipline, as opposed to saying I want her body, because the thing is, you can eventually get her mindset and her discipline. And, you know, the thing is, it's the patience of not getting it, but maintaining it for 5, 10, 15 years to achieve what she's achieved. Like, she made a really good comment where she said, I have done more training than you have likely done of anything else in your entire life. And she goes, she said, I've done more training. I think I'm going to butcher it. Sorry if you're listening, Hetty. She says, yeah, I think I've done more training than anything else I've done in my entire life. And like, you'll never be able to catch up to her. And so I just think, even if you did adopt that mindset, you did have the patience, and you did her training method, you followed her diet, or an equivalent of the diet that's right for you for all the same reasons, you'd still have a different physique. You would look different, because you are different. You would just look like I don't want to say a better version of you, but a different version of yourself. You're not going to look like the same version of Hetty, because we get her physique a lot, but it's like, that physique is phenomenal.
I love the way you just said that. She just said you won't become a better version of you, but you'll become another version of you.
Yeah, you become another version of yourself, not the same version of someone else.
When you say the word better, what my mind immediately went to is better if you're zoomed the fuck in, because you're looking in one element. Like, what have you given up to get that? Because if you were trying to get something that, as Zoe has said, is not realistic for you, that you do not have the same lifestyle, you do not have the same history, you're not going to get there. And I was talking to Hattie in a conversation, like, I think it was last month, we were talking, and I asked her what measurements she takes, because when I saw her progress photos, I'm like, I'm going to ask her what type of measurement she gets. Like, I'm asking her what she tracks. Whereas someone would be like, oh, I want that body, I'm jealous, dream body, oh, I needed to hear that today. And PJ Street put out the most amazing post that I chuck a Luke, and I just send it to my clients, because Luke is very
that's perfect. Yeah,
it literally says, there comes a point where I needed to hear this today, becomes something that you actually need to implement today. Like, you actually need to put some action to it. Like, you will keep comparing yourself to other people the more that you don't put the work into doing the actions that get you there. And the reason you don't do that is because you either fear failure, you set the barrier too high for yourself to start with, that, like the thing with my post, like, you need to embrace the resistance, but you need to not set the bar so high that you can't even get started. because you keep getting down on yourself until you do that. And I'm trying to lead this into the next question, but there's just so much gold in this.
So much to talk about, because I was just about to say another reason people fail is because they confuse their ambitions with their abilities. Like they have, like you said, they set the bar like too high, and the reason it's too high is because they're not prepared. They don't realize what it's actually going to take to get there. And I think social media, a lot of the again, it's highlight reels, right? And it appears as though a lot of the times it's easy, you know, because these girls live the life, like they live this life, they live it, they thrive it, they work in it. And it's just, it's them to their core. And it's an enjoyable process for them. But it's not.
That was perfect. It's an enjoyable process for them. If you want to make fat loss easy, if you want to make building muscle easy, if you want to make getting your dream body easy, it's an enjoyable process for them. You have
to enjoy the process, right? And again, do it from a place of like enjoyment, not a place of hate. As in like, I hate my body. But yeah, there's so much to unpack in that regards, but we could talk about it forever.
Yeah, but that's seriously the part that a lot of people miss out on, because whenever I'm having my conversations as well with anyone, like not clients, it's, but this happened or this happened. It's the expectation of what you need to do versus what you actually need to do to get started is so warped.
100%. And people, what I think people do as well is they have their lifestyle that they'll live their entire life. Obviously, it adapts over time, but they go to bed on a Sunday night. They wake up on a Monday morning and they all of a sudden expect that they're going to be able to overhaul their lifestyle and live a completely different way. It doesn't work like that. Like, you have to see where you're at now and make small adjustments and manageable tweaks along the way. You can't just wake up one Monday morning and eat in a completely different way than you've eaten your entire life and have a completely different training style that it really takes small changes and building those habits. There's a really good post I saw the other day, and it's like, people need to stop setting goals and start creating habits. And I really like that, because you're never going to stick to it if you just change overnight and expect to be a whole new different person with a whole new different lifestyle and a whole new way of doing things without actually like creating the habits and taking the small steps to get there.
Yeah. And this is why I don't believe in goals. And I've never, like I said, your goal is the destination in the GPS. Once you've set that, leave that there. And that's exactly why coaches are so highly valuable. Like, seriously, you should get some type of coach sometime in your life. Like, honestly, it's the best investment you can get, because it's not just about forming the habits. It's about the thing that no one wants to do, and that's getting freaking realistic and out of denial about where you are right now. Like, realistic. And
they're the coach is the GPS. Like, you put in the destination that you want to go, and your GPS tells you where to go to get there, and what turns you need to take. And that's literally what your coach does, directs you to the goal you say that you want. But the difficult thing is, like, when your clients say, like, this is what I want, and it's like, okay, you say that you want that, but you're not doing what needs to be done to get there. So there's a disconnect. Like, what's this disconnect? Like, how can we join the two things? Like, how can we connect what you say you want and what you're doing?
I love that. I listened to my podcast with 𝘴𝘵𝘂𝗵𝗵. If you haven't, I think it's number 1.
Luke just got off a podcast with her this morning.
You should listen to the one with 𝘴𝘵𝘂𝗵𝗵. It's actually amazing. Listen to the one with my podcast.
I bet.
Did you?
No, I do not listen to podcasts. I know I need to. I just don't. The only thing I listen to is audio, because I read. Obviously, okay. I'm a big reader, but I only read. See, I only read like novels, and I read at the end of every night, because that's my stress. That's my wind down time. That's my time to switch off my brain. But there's so many like business books and mentor books that I want, and finance books that I really want to read. But when it comes time to read, I'm like, no, I need to read like my novel, because that's what winds me off. So I audiobook listen to anything nonfiction. So the only thing I listen to is audiobooks. I just don't listen to podcasts.
I swear to God, this is going to turn.
I wish I did though.
This is going to turn into 2 podcasts. I swear to God, because you just mentioned 3 things I want to pick up.
We can do 2-part series. I've got the time.
We'll do that. So there are 2 things that we just mentioned there. One is wind down routine. the importance of having a morning and night routine, and the importance of time blocking. And on the other end, she has all these great intentions, which I cannot wait to dig into this study. I just wrote it down. I've been meaning to dig into it for ages, but it's a common phenomenon. We go to bed with all the best intentions and we wake up to the same routine. And I'm actually a victim to this. I've been wanting to change my meal one for so long. I've changed it about twice in my life. I find it, or maybe 3 times. I find it so freaking hard to change it because it's just habit to wake up to it. And it's like, I'm going to struggle with this when winter comes because it's made of ice and pumpkin and protein powder. It's a pumpkin.
Gross. Your food, honestly, the shit you eat blows my mind.
Not anymore. Not anymore. So my meal one is like, I eat literally the same thing every day. And that's the other thing. It's like, you need to realize what is realistic for you. You can eat the same thing every day, but if you're a mom, you might need to change your dinner up. But that's the beauty of actually having the bigger meal being dinner, because then you owe more flexibility. We can talk about that too.
We also see, and just on that as well, the clients of ours that get the best results are the people that eat the same shit every day. That's Luke. Luke does that. The thing is, I can't do that. I would get food fatigue. I know myself. I know myself well enough, and I have enough self-awareness. So, and this is the other thing, I think people need to have more self-awareness, jot that down, because I know what I am like. I know I don't have enough motive to eat the same shit every day. And if I didn't have that self-awareness and I looked at someone on social media, like I listened to this podcast and I'm like, oh, okay, so the people that get the best results eat the same shit every day. I'm going to start doing that. And then every time I try it, I fail. I'm just going to feel like a failure. But I think because I have that self-awareness and I know that that's not something I'm going to be able to sustain long-term, because I need that variety. I love food. Like, I love variety of food. There's so many things I love. I also give into my cravings, and I'm not talking about like binge cravings, but there are times when I'm like, man, all I feel like is salmon. Like, all I want to eat is fish. And there's a reason that I'm craving that, and I'll give into that. And then there's times where I'm like, the last thing I feel like right now is salmon. I really feel like a steak. I'm going to eat a steak. Whereas like if I tried to eat the same shit every day, and I'm like, I don't feel like that though, because learning to listen to your body is like the same thing as, so some mornings you might crave avocados on your bread, on your toast. And then some mornings you're like, the last thing I want is avocados. That's listening to your body. Like, your body is wanting whatever you've got in those avocados or in that salmon or in those prawns.
This is going to be a really long conversation now, and we're going to have to try and remember going back to what we were speaking about before, which we'll probably forget. But that's
wind down routine. I'm jotting them down. Time blocking.
You keep writing it too. We're probably writing all different things, so we'll keep going.
Yeah.
This part is really important because there is no such thing as intuitive eating. There really isn't. Like, you intuitively go listen to my podcast with Alan Bacon. It is freaking amazing. Like, the guests I've been having on lately, you need to go back and listen to them. The one with Alan Bacon, it was about the fact that you intuitively ate to where you are right now. That is why you're stuck. That is why you're here. You need to track your food for, like, think of this like spiral. So I will talk about the way that I do my coaching, and then I'll speak a little bit about the way that's
thing. Like, yeah, and the thing is that the whole topic on intuitive eating, it's such a sensitive topic to touch on, because there's so much emotional ties to dieting. The thing to food, sorry. The thing is, intuitive eating, from my understanding, was never meant to be used to alter your physique. So if that's your goal, you can't use intuitive eating. Intuitive eating is designed to heal your relationship with food. And the thing is, like, I will never not feel like a chocolate brownie. Like, ever. Like, I fucking love them. So if I decided to intuitively eat and eat whatever my body is telling me to eat, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good for me. But I don't know. I'm so in two minds about this whole intuitive eating thing. Like, I understand the premise of it. And again, though, do you know what? At the end of the day, all it is another tool to be used at the right time with the right person for the right reason. Yeah, it's not. It's
lost in semantics. And as like Luke, this is where I was kind of like, I need to always think of Luke watching me every time I post.
What would Luke do?
Yeah, it's like, and not say something very bipolar. But after, like, in the last 4 months, I'm like, no, I need to actually speak up on what is actually there. I don't care about that, because it literally covers the most of it. Like, there is no such thing as intuitive eating. When it comes to intuitive eating, in this day and age, no. If you have dieted in your past, fuck no. Like I've been through, and I'd heard you mention this in a podcast too, and I was guilty of this as well. It's, yeah, I went through freaking anorexia, and I compared that to where I was right now. And that where I was right now was still freaking lean without much body fat. But now I compare it to where I am now, and I actually have food freedom for the fact that I eat the same shit every day. It's not really like, you get food freedom through the best way that suits you. And that doesn't come overnight.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also though, it's the same thing with like discipline gives you freedom.
It does.
It's like with your daily structure and it's, yeah. And structure gives you freedom, and it sounds counterintuitive and it sounds, you know, counteractive, but yeah, discipline and structure give you freedom. And that's another thing, like just really, and another example of that is like, you know, everyone wants to work for themselves and be a business owner because they think that it gives you freedom. Fuck does not give you freedom. It gives you flexibility. And if you don't have discipline with that flexibility, it will fuck you over. By the way, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah. I think I've already sweared a few times on here. It's Aussie mate. It's Aussie bro. Yeah,
I should have checked prior to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I will go back and listen to that one with Alan Bacon though, because that sounds interesting. And again, you've got people that argue both sides. I sit on the fence with it. I just think at the end of the day, it's a tool to be used with the right person at the right time for the right reason. And it's not for everyone. Counting macros isn't for everyone. Counting calories isn't for everyone. Intuitive eating isn't for everyone. Like you've just got to find what works for you. And therefore that's the danger of trying to copy someone else, what tools they use to get there, because every road can lead to Rome, right? Like if you put in your GPS your destination, like your goal, and there's like a really direct route, that's often going to be the hardest route for when it comes to like fat loss and physique changes, because that will have to be the strictest. The most direct route is often the strictest. You can also go around on a detour, you can go longer routes, you can stop, and you can, and those detours and those pauses to stop and watch the scenery and everything, that's like your birthdays, your celebrations, your little bit of flexibility. It's just going to take you longer to get there, so you just have to find what works for you, and not try and copy what worked for someone else.
You want to know what's really funny though? Everything you just said is what I said word for word pretty much in the podcast I got off this morning. So we were talking about taking the long path or the short path, and it's like, you want to take the long path, but then we were talking about zooming out and focusing on all the health stuff, the feeling stuff. You still make that process, but on the road to the long path, you forget there's even a fucking path there because you're too busy looking at all the surroundings, and then you say, I literally said this, and then you want to stop off here, and then you want to go
to get your destination.
This is the thing, like you hear me and her saying the same thing. This is how important it is, and this is the stuff that's not spoken about by coaches that just want either a paycheck or that just care about a before and after, because you are not a before and after. I don't know where I got this from Luke, but I say it all the time. You do not drop dead after the after photo, so it's never an after photo, it's a during. Before and during. Yeah, that's good. And the thing is, it's not even a before photo, it's where you came to us at. It's like a starting point of wherever you are at now, and there's a history there, so everyone's before is different. And I really need to get Luke on to talk about the like, there's so much fear around sometimes cutting calories really low, but there's a lot of other stuff around that as well. This is where a coach comes in, and that's what I wanted to speak about. The value of coaching in using the right tools from the toolbox. And like, I have a client who it took about this, you're gonna talk on this one as well, because you spoke about this in one of the posts. I copy pasted it. So he's been with me he's my only health related client, and he joined up for the premise of lowering his blood pressure, lowering his cholesterol, doing all this stuff. That was his premise, because I helped one of my diabetes clients manage her insulin so much better, and then she got her husband on board. But we didn't know what to do because he wasn't tracking his food, he was eating whatever. And then it finally took him to come to me saying, what can I can't, like, I'm finding it hard to track, blah, blah, blah. So what are we doing? Every single day, every meal, everything that goes in his mouth is a photo in my WhatsApp. Like, we have the tools, the good coaches have the tools, and they're willing to work with you. And I want to go back to the tracking and the intuitive eating thing, because that part is really important. Like, you intuitively ate to where you are now, and there's two ways I want to go with this that you can actually take this. Is the first part is your body. scientifically, like biologically, scientifically, mentally, social, like psychologically, everything. Your body runs off a clock. Your circadian rhythm, there's the circadian rhythms in your gut lining as well. Like everything runs to that clock. You can only move it about 15 minutes at a time to make something stick. I heard that in some neuroscience podcast. But the thing is, your body runs to a clock. The more that you create that structure with your meals, the more that you create that structure with your non-negotiables, with your timing, the more you're going to stick to it. But if you're always giving your food this, that, and the other, I'm pretty sure you eat at pretty regular times most of the time. And it's the same sort of stuff. Like if you're not, that's like, you get hungry signals at a certain time. And because I train 4 days in a row and then have 3 days off, it is so easy for me to just go and give into like some comfort food downstairs if I wanted to in the mornings, because now I'm not having, okay, I'm going to have a 200 calorie meal. Then I'm going to go train, and then I'm going to eat my next meal at 1:30, 2 p.m., 2:30 p.m. if I'm really busy. And then I eat all my meals from there, but they're usually around the same time. And it's you create this structure where your body's naturally hungry at that. And I'm not usually hungry in the morning, but I can easily go for something. And because my dinner is like 1,200 calories, and then I have like a 600 calorie thing after that, it's like, you need to find what works for you, but it also depends on how your body responds to that. But I think the whole thing that I'm trying to say there is, you need to work your way up the levels, kind of like Spyro. This is what I wanted to say. This is what you will like, because Luke loves video games. Luke is that type of person.
Gamify stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So think about it like Spyro. I made this podcast in 2017 about Spyro. So if you wanted to find it, it's back in the archives of 2017. Your diet, your training is like Spyro. You need to earn your badges. You need to earn all these different things, go up against challenges, go against those demons, whatever it is, to earn your badges to get higher. And you need to build up your inventory. You can exchange things, whatever the hell. But you need to first just gain habits, gain momentum. I have a client that's literally just working on a morning and a night routine. No tracking, nothing. Not even exercise right yet. That's going to be next week. But you need to start with where you're at and be okay to not do everything all at once, which is what started the whole conversation. Like, you can't do everything all at once. Yeah, you want to do all these things. Yeah, you want to train like this, train like that. But if you try to do all the things all at once, you end up doing jack shit. You overwhelm yourself, say you can't do it, and then you never even start, and then you're stuck cycling your wheels.
Absolutely. And that just goes back to the whole thing I mentioned earlier, right? With like, you go to bed on Sunday night with all these habits and lifestyles and the ways you eat, and then you wake up Monday morning and are expected to completely change every aspect of your life. And it's like, that's not realistic. It's not sustainable. There's probably very few people who have found success with that method. So it's like, okay, let's see where I'm at. And do you know what, when we do this at the gym with our clients, a lot of them are coming to the gym. Some of them come to the gym because they want fat loss, and they come 2 or 3 times a week. And then you say to them, how's your diet? And your diet, they're like, always like, my diet's good. And I was like, well, if it was good, you wouldn't be where you are. And so what we do is, if they ever want to talk to us about nutrition, we set them up with Chronometer, and we say to them, just track everything you eat for the next week or 2. Like, that's all you have to do. Just eat how you normally do, but track it. This serves 2 to 3 purposes. The first purpose is, if they do that, if they're willing to put in the effort to just log what they're eating, then we know that they're serious about wanting some nutritional advice and wanting to implement whatever we give them. The second thing is, we can see exactly what their habits are and how they're eating now. And so we can see what we can, with that, we then make our recommendations. So it's like, okay, let's just, swap this out for this and swap this out for this. And maybe you could substitute this for that, because you don't want to overhaul the way they eat. They've obviously got preferences and habits and emotional ties around their food. So don't completely sever all of those. Let's just make some swaps. So it's like, okay, instead of using sour cream on your nachos, maybe you can use some Greek yogurt. And instead of using that much cheese, maybe swap it out for the fat-free cheese or low-fat cheese and use half the amount. And so they can still eat how they like to. It's just making some swaps, and that's building that habit. And then slowly over time, you just make more and more swaps. And it's even like, okay, instead of I don't want you to change anything, and I don't want you to change a thing, but just add a cup of vegetables to every meal. And so, and then you eventually will find that you'll get food displacement, where if you give them stuff that you're adding to, instead of the mentality of diets of just everything has to be taken away and deprived, it's like, let's add stuff, add extra protein and vegetables to every single meal. Eat how you normally do, but add those two things. Those are your priorities. And you'll find that they'll eat their priority and then and not eat as much of what they normally do. So there's so many things you can do to just slowly create those changes. And instead of just like going to bed Sunday morning, Sunday night, waking up Monday morning, and then they're eating food that they don't enjoy, don't like, have never eaten before, because they think that's what they need to do. So yeah, so those small changes for sure.
There is so much stuff that I want to say to that. First of all, I'm just going to read out something and then I'm going to go on my tangent. Thank you for bringing me to what I actually wanted to talk about before my divergent mind went. So every problem has a solution, but if you don't talk, no one can help you. I'm quoting this from Muscle Nerds, by the way, so just bear with me.
That is a meme, actually.
If you're a client, you need to communicate to your coach. Otherwise, they cannot help you relative to what you're struggling on. If you're a gym goer, like, actually, we'll just talk about the client one. Like, we don't know what we don't know. And if you're not willing to tell us what is going on, like, I don't know that you're not doing this or not doing that if you're not checking in. You need to check in. That's why there are check-ins there. That's why we ask questions. And something that I come across a lot, I want to go back to that food thing, I wrote it down, but something I come across a lot with my girls is I will ask questions, and then I'll ask questions to those questions, and then I get ghosted because people aren't willing to admit to anything, or they're sitting in denial, or they don't even want to admit to themselves what they're feeling. They're afraid of failure. They're afraid of feeling, and that is... And
not only that, though, I think admitting things like that, it puts accountability on yourself, and a lot of people like to blame other people. And an example of that is, like, we had a client come and stay with us for a while, and they had all of these goals. They sat down with Luke and laid out what they wanted to achieve, laid out a plan. It was all agreed upon, and they ended up not entirely liking the process. They ended up just leaving, and then, like, we never heard from them again. And in their mind, they've now painted us as like the bad people for trying to not hold them accountable to what they said they wanted to do, but, like, you know, making that plan and trying to see if they would stick to it, where all they needed to do was communicate and say, this isn't working for me, or I'm not enjoying this, or can we change the plan? Same thing happened to, like, some of our employees that have left recently. Is like we never had any issues raised, and it got to the point where they were so whatever they had going on, their only reason was to leave. And it's like, had you spoken to us, we could have resolved this. Like, we can only help based on the information that we know. And if you're not prepared to tell us anything, we can't do anything. It's just, communication is so important. On the flip side of that, and I did put a disclaimer on that post, because again, John Romaniello, I mentioned him before about the post with upwards and downwards social comparison.
That's what I was about
to
talk on as well.
He did say that, you know, if they want to, they would, because I've lived most of my life as being like, if people, I just assume people will do what they want to do, which is absolutely not the case. I've learned over time anyway. And I'm like that with all of my relationships, with my personal relationships, with our business relationships. I sit back and I let people do what they want, and I assume that they're doing what they want, right? And I see if you, what do you do without direction? Is it the right thing by, like, the company, or by what I want in my personal relationships? If it is, I'm like, cool, they're a good fit. Like, I'm not very good at giving, like, direction and stuff. But the problem with that is it doesn't take into account people with, like, mental health issues, or like any type of disabilities, or stuff where they're unable to vocalize what their issues are. So it's kind of like, where do you meet in the middle with that? Like, how much responsibility is on you to draw shit out of people, or give them the space where they feel comfortable? But that space is different for every person. So how do you know how to create a space that's comfortable for one employee or one client, and create another space that's comfortable for the other one? So it's kind of like, where does the onus sit? Where does the onus stand on you as a coach to almost not like force it out, but I don't know. It's and then how do you know that there's an issue? How do you know to even create that space if they're not even going to tell you that much? Like, there's so much we could have done to help our past client, and the past employees, if they had just communicated that there was concerns or issues, instead of just constantly saying, all good, I'm all good, I'm all good, everything's fine. That we're going to make our decisions based on those answers. Okay, if everything's fine, sweet, we don't need to do anything. And in reality, it's not fine. It's like, fuck, this is just a shit show now for everybody.
All good. That, like,
all good.
You can't decide all good in your freaking check-ins all the time, because if something is not good, like if we are trying to work with you, that is our job as a coach.
We're on the same team. Like, everyone's on the same team. It's not,
my introduction video is, this isn't about me, but it's also not about you. As in, it's not about you struggling on your own anymore, because obviously that hasn't worked. And I like, this girl has been, I just opened her conversation because it's actually pretty powerful. This girl has been on with me for like ages. And since investing half my life in half my paycheck into this mentor, is like, I'm asking the deeper questions, and people aren't willing to go that far. But it's like, we're not here to judge you. We're not here to, like, we're on the same team. And then it's like, we can't help you past the weaknesses. Like, in this conversation, it's like always not having the sleep that you want to have. It's always like, no, it's not what you want. It's not what you want to pass on to your children. And then when I ask deeper questions, it's like, I do want to change, but I'm ashamed of it too, which is why I don't really talk about it. And then when I went deeper, it was because it makes her feel weak, and it's not something she likes to show. But then here's the thing: what does weakness mean to you? Why are you scared? What is there to be scared of? And that relates to this whole, like, that was my question, and that relates to this whole conversation. It's you.
So carry on.
I was going to say, you need to stop expecting so much from yourself all at once, because it isn't realistic. It isn't practical. And if you're trying to achieve all of these things all at once, you're already setting yourself up for failure, because you think it's going to be easy from the get-go. And as I should put this as a reel and like tag you in it, but as I said with the thing, it's like, if you start anything in mind, like, what's in your mind is, this is going to be pretty easy. This is like, these people are showing it to be easy. And then you come across resistance, or you start to slip up, or you find it hard, you're going to immediately self-sabotage and say, no, I can't do this. I'm not up for this. Like, almost when I started with Luke, he challenged me big time with the scale, because I'd never had any, you can even talk on this because you were there. I never had an issue with the scale until I had to have all my focus on the scale. It's like, you don't have an issue with the scale until it becomes your issue. You don't have an issue with whatever it is until it actually becomes the issue. Like, you start off without that issue, and then it becomes it. And then I was stuck on like 1,600 calories. I remember sitting there telling Luke about my diet while I'm in one of their program design courses, and he's just like, he's doing his maths in his head. He's like, yeah, so with your muscle mass, with the muscle mass that you have, you could be eating, how heavy are you?
And your output as well, like the training output that you had.
Yeah, it was intense. And he's like, you should be eating like 350 grams of carbs a day. I was on 160, and it took me ages to get there. And I freaked out at the singlest bit of a scale fluctuation. Like, I know everything about what impact scales get. I still got impacted by that. And now you can.
I mean, that's the thing. I made a post on that the other day, right? And it's like, not all of our decisions are based on education. And it's like, you know what scale weight means, it doesn't give you it's not your self-worth, it's not fat, you know what I mean? But you still can develop that fear because it's not just knowledge that gets you there. But I do just want to touch on, like, again, we were talking about like the communication with the clients and then them and the way you dug down. There's a tactic, again, it's called the 5 whys. If you ask why 5 times, that's when you usually get to the root cause. So they're like, oh, I don't want to eat that much calories. Why? Because I know what's a good thing. Like, I want to lose weight. Why? Because I don't like the way I look. Why? And obviously you don't just say why, you can have better conversations, but when you get to like the 5th why, it's usually the true reason. And it's like, I would love to get change in front of my husband without feeling embarrassed or something like that. But that communication, and I think the reason why a lot of people won't communicate in instances like that, like with the old clients and your clients and like our old employees and stuff like that, it's like, if they did, they have to put some onus on themselves almost. It's like easier to not and then blame someone else and the other person be the bad picture in the story, and then you walk away feeling like fine. Whereas if you were to acknowledge your own hiccups or say, look, I've got this issue, you have to face something. And some people don't want to do that. It's easier to like put the blame on someone else as to why you didn't achieve what you wanted to, or aren't where you want to be.
I think a nice way to put that as well, go listen to episode 187. It's called Take Ownership of Your Life and Priorities, or change won't happen. But at the same, I love how this is all linking together. Like, you can see the theme here, like, this is important shit. And Zoe and Luke are honestly the best of the best for putting this out there. And I will actually get you to explain on this later as well, because it is so important for people to realize. And it's something that I always fight in my head, the battle of, it is as simple as freaking like doing the simple shit, but it's deeper than that. And it's not just in research papers. And
simple doesn't mean easy either. Like, I remember I was having a conversation with Hetty, and she said to me, the word just is like dangerous. We're like, you just have to follow your calories. You just have to go to the gym. And it almost takes away, like, it simplifies something that, whilst it might be a simple action, it's not always easy for people.
On the flip end,
hey,
the just part. On the flip end, I always put an angry face with my clients whenever they use the word only. I only did this.
Yeah.
It's just the same token. Because
we had a client, and she is in her 50s, and she was doing weighted pull-ups. Like, first off, females doing weighted pull-ups, not common. And she goes, I just used a measly 15 pounds. And we were like, not measly. First off, the fact you can do pull-ups, incredible. Weighted pull-ups, incredible. 15 pounds was like more than 10% of your body weight, even more incredible. And they were downplaying it. And it's like, no, don't do that. Like, most 20-year-olds can't do that.
I'm going to put a reminder into this to put in like a poll thing for that, because honestly, I don't understand. Like, well, I do understand because I was there, but I'm so curious to know what comes into your mind when you're saying only to things that you never could have done before, which I think would link into what we said before, where there is so much that we can accomplish, so much we can do, so much amazing stuff, but there is only so much that we can realistically do. And back to what Zoe said before, it's not just about freaking taking ownership. It's about realizing and being okay with the fact that maybe things weren't your fault. But right now, it's your responsibility to take action. Otherwise, things are never going to change. And you can either get sick of being where you're at, like I was, and like I've been talking about recently, with the fact that I was just not seeing a shift in my body. I was sick of my body composition. I was sick of being so food focused. I was sick of all of those bloody things and just like complaining all the time. Like, you get so sick of your own shit that you want to change it. But when is enough enough? When is enough enough? And this is going to link back to the actual first question, the second question I ever had, which you can bring in the other stuff as well. But it's like, when you start with a coach, they're not just there for weight loss. And some people aren't ready for fat loss to start with.
Yeah. And it's not what they want to hear. It's a hard thing it's a really difficult situation to navigate as well. It's like, someone comes, and I did a podcast last night with Flex Success, and we're talking about like the hypertension course and the blood pressure and stuff. And we're talking about how if someone's got really high blood pressure, the last thing you want to do is do like really heavy weight training with them, because that checks your blood pressure up even more. And Dean was like, how do you navigate that? Like, how do you navigate if someone comes in and they're like, all I want to do is like get a stronger squat, or, I want to get a really good 5 RM or 1 RM or whatever on a bench or a deadlift or something. And you say to them, no, sorry, because you've got high blood pressure, you are going to have to do aerobic training. Like, how do you navigate that? How do you give them what they need and what they want? They're just going to be like, fuck right off, I'll go somewhere else, because high blood pressure is asymptomatic. He's got no problems with it. They don't realize how dangerous it is. So why should they sabotage their goals for something like that? And it's a really hard thing when someone comes to you and they really want fat loss, and you're like, you're not in the right position, not only just like physiologically, but mentally. Like, it's not going to be a healthy thing for you right now. Like, how do you have those conversations, make them understand and make them commit, without just being like, right, fuck off, I'm going to go to another coach who's going to give me what I want, and probably cause some damage along the way.
That's what I was going to link it back to. And the thing is, like, I have 3 old clients that have recently just joined up back with me. One of them, she's been with me for quite a couple of months now, but she was with me back in 2018. And in that period of time, she signed up with a comp prep coach. She did a comp prep. She's in her 50s. She came to me she almost quit coaching twice. I did not let her. I'm someone that will cheer you on and believe in you even when you don't believe it. And I did not let her leave me, because she was getting in her own head. She was complicating the process, and she was mentally still dieting. And that is their thing. She was never this bad before, to the point where it affected her sex life. It affected her libido. It affected everything, to the point where she lost herself. And this is like, you need to be willing to pace yourself and not want it all now, because all the things we spoke about, like actually developing all these tools and becoming like a badass, it doesn't happen overnight. You need to be willing to put in that work. And like the whole levels thing, and because that's what I wanted to talk about after all that, because you mentioned the stuff that you do with your clients in the gym. And yes, I'm going back today because that's where I wanted to talk about this. But yeah, we were talking about the way that she approaches her clients in the gym with the eating habits, and we'll dig into that a little bit more as well. But it's the same with me, with my clients, except the fact that it depends on what they're willing and what they're able to do. And that's the same with you, comparing yourself to other people and their bodies. It's like, yeah, but what are they doing right now? And what are you willing and able to do about what they're doing right now? And I heard on another podcast, I'll come back to that food thing. I heard on another podcast, they said something like, you can't just wish for someone's body without wishing for everything else that comes with it, which might be might be all those broken things in their life.
I think we had that with you at one point too. Like, I remember you saying, like, we had another client, you're like, oh my God, her ass. Like, I want her ass. And I was like, yeah, but you wouldn't want what come like the body